Force General Mike Minihan sent a memo saying, "I hope I'm wrong. My gut tells me we will fight in 2025. Xi secured his third term and set his war council in October of 2022. Taiwan's presidential elections are in 2024 and will offer Xi a reason."
Into the region. Yes, more planes. Yes, more ships and more missiles. We've got to deploy them and make certain that China understands that there is
a leaked memo from a U.S. four-star general saying his gut told him the U.S. would be at war with China in 2025 has prompted warnings about the danger of undisciplined predictions of a Taiwan Strait conflict. The memo, by the head of the U.S. Air Mobility Command, General Mike Minihan, was the latest prediction of a Chinese military invasion of Taiwan, which have ranged from 2022 to 2049. It has triggered a debate about U.S. readiness, accusations of warmongering, and concerns about desensitizing people to the real risk of invasion. China's government claims Taiwan as a province and its authoritarian leader, Xi Jinping, is set on what he terms reunification, by force if necessary. It is a prospect Taiwan's government and people vehemently reject. Around this impasse, tensions are escalating. Beijing's military is growing bigger and is increasing its coercive targeting and harassment of Taiwan. I hope I am wrong. My gut tells me we will fight in 2025, Minihan wrote. Xi's team, reason, and opportunity are all aligned for 2025. Minihan's jingoistic 9-point plan set out his preparation for the next fight. Dated February 1st but leaked on social media days before, it ordered increased training and integration of the AMC and joint forces to deter, and if required, defeat China. Timelines within the decade are usually about China's capability. The Director General of Taiwan's National Security Bureau and its defense minister have said China would reach full invasion capability by, respectively, 2023 and 2025. Later dates are often based on China's intention, picking years with symbolic significance for the Chinese Communist Party. But it is not always clear. The U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, said last year that China was determined to annex Taiwan on a much faster timeline, but did not give a date. Minihan's prediction was quickly linked to statements in 2021 by the head of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, ADM Philip Davidson, to a Senate committee hearing. In what is now referred to as the Davidson window, the admiral said he believed the Chinese threat to Taiwan would manifest in the next 6 years, by 2027. This week Davidson repeated his comments, saying his conflict scenario included smaller assaults on outlying islands. Davidson, who is in Taiwan meeting the president and other defense figures, declined an interview request. Minihan's memo was written off by many analysts as offering no evidence beyond his gut and crude assessments that 2024 elections in the US and Taiwan were good timing for an invasion. The most charitable interpretation of Minihan's comments was that he was aiming them at his own organization to spark change, said Blake Herzinger, a non-resident fellow at the American Enterprise Institute think tank. The part that doesn't make sense is releasing a memo with this sort of inflammatory language, unclassified, basically guaranteeing it would leak. I cannot imagine it was something the administration was happy to see. Michael O'Hanlon, the Director of Research in Foreign Policy at the Brookings Institution Research Group, told the broadcaster Voice of America the memo was very unwise and potentially dangerous because of the potential a self-fulfilling prophecy. Some analysts accuse the military figures of putting forward short timelines to lobby for more funding. A 2022-23 window offered by the U.S. Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Michael Gilday, in October, for instance, also urged the government not to skimp on funding U.S. military readiness. All countries must help prevent catastrophic war amid China-U.S. tensions, Australian minister said. James Palmer, a deputy editor at Foreign Policy magazine, said such predictions of war in the next few years are generated largely by a military security establishment that sees Beijing as an inevitable next opponent and a useful tool for its own budgetary ambitions. The Wall Street Journal editorial board was among those defending the memo, saying it offered an important point outside its rhetoric, that the U.S. is not ready for conflict and people should be more worried about it. This is a typical thinking in the U.S. military, or in all military organizations, that the preparation of wars with potential challengers or opponents is a must, said Huang Weibo. The U.S. is a long-standing integral party to cross-strait tensions as a global military power and as a legally bound supporter of Taiwan's defensive capability. Its cross-strait policy remains underpinned by a doctrine of strategic ambiguity, a refusal to confirm whether or not it would come to Taiwan's aid in the event of hostilities. Minihan's memo raised the suggestion that some in the U.S. military were acting on an unambiguous assumption, or understanding, that it would. Ryan Hass, a Brookings Institute scholar on China and Asia, said inconsistent predictions and undisciplined utterances from senior figures risk squandering U.S. credibility. What U.S. leaders say matters, he said, noting that U.S. warnings about Russia's invasion of Ukraine had been borne out. On the other hand, uniformed military leaders make predictions based on their gut instincts about when the PRC might invade Taiwan. It erodes confidence in America's grasp of the situation. The impact of comments such as those of Minihan, Davidson and Gilday goes beyond U.S. credibility. Such pronouncements often draw hostile reaction from Beijing, and cause confusion and fear among the public in China and Taiwan. Chinese officials responded to Minihan's memo by warning the U.S. against inflaming tensions. On Wednesday and Thursday, the CCP's military sent more than 60 warplanes and ships into Taiwan's air defense identification zone, but it was not clear whether this larger-than-usual incursion was in retaliation to Minihan or another perceived provocation. Huang did not think Minihan's memo inflamed tensions. "This is just a judgment from a very senior USAF general in charge of air mobility," he said. "I respect Minihan's assessment and prediction about 2025, but I also think those are not in the mainstream thinking of the Biden administration." In Taiwan, the memo received a modest level of coverage, featuring in news bulletins and political talk shows, but with far less alarmism than it got overseas. Brian Hyo, a Taiwanese journalist and editor, questioned whether alarmist predictions from Western figures could become a boy crying wolf situation and lead to warnings about an invasion being looked at less seriously. Taiwan's government is urgently working to fix entrenched issues with its own military and foster urgency in a population that has lived with the China threat for decades. Conscription for young men was recently increased to a full year of training and service, and the voluntary reserve service is being expanded to include women. "This rumor has always been here, it's always the same," said Mrs. Yi. Her husband, Mr. Wang, shouted his agreement from the back of the stall. "Taiwan's political parties always say China will attack us," he said. "I'll fight them, I am not afraid. I don't care about this news anymore," he said. "If it will happen, it will happen." So, that was it for today guys. Make sure to like and subscribe so that you never miss another video.